One thing that's going on in crypto right now is everyone is wondering, are we ever going to see alt season? Is this market topped out? Are we going into a bear market? Is this the start of something much worse? What is happening? And right now, I understand, right? I get it. When we look at the market on the weekly, we are still in deep red. It is a sea of red out there. And just looking at this on the monthly, I mean, most of the gains on the monthly are still just coming from a select few. There's still a lot of pain even on the monthly view, with a lot of altcoins down significantly. I mean, HBAR is down 11+% on the 1 month, XRP down 5%. We're also seeing additional losses across the board at 10+%. So when we are thinking about this, everyone is wondering what's going on right now. Is this market officially topped out? Are we entering the beginning stages of the bear market? Well, taking a quick look at the market, Bitcoin 109.5K, Ethereum $4,000 roughly, XRP $2 and almost 80 cents. Looking at this on the weekly, Bitcoin is down about 5.3%, Ethereum down about 10.4%, XRP is down about 6.3%, so it's holding up a little bit more strong compared to Ethereum, which we like to see. But beyond that, the market is definitely experiencing a big wipeout. I mean, if we are looking at this on the 1 month, this is a significant sell-off, and we're still above those lows from, August. So I don't think that we should be panicking at all right now. This seems like a normal, correction. I don't think that this is the beginning stages of a bear market or anything like that. This is very normal price action. But beyond that, right, the main thing that I'm looking at with this sell-off is the fear and greed index, because the fear levels are now getting closer and closer to that extreme fear level, which is exactly what we are looking for. We want to see that extreme fear level get targeted, because if we are looking at this from a market perspective of, are we trading in greed levels, or are we still in, that area of neutral where nobody thinks that, this market is scary just yet and that everything's going to be all fine? No, we want to see the fear levels. We want to see people panicking. We want to see people saying there's no way that altcoins are going to bounce. There's no way that we're getting out of this. So right now we're getting into that point of retail capitulating, right? And typically when we have retail capitulate, we go all the way back here to like March into April. That marked the bottom for the cycle. Now, this time around, or I shouldn't say for the cycle, but this basically bottomed for the local bottom. This is what confirmed that. This time around, we're still looking for that bottom signal. Now, the thing to focus on right now currently is the altcoin market. When we're looking at altcoins specifically, majority of them are in the oversold territory, which would also align with the fear levels hitting around like 30 or so. Again, this is showing us that the market is still in that capitulation area. I mean, even when it comes to XRP, right? We have been following XRP. We've been looking at XRP. Now, on the daily, we're not exactly at extremely oversold levels. Let's go all the way back to April, for an example, right? Like in April, we hit about like 31. Currently, we are trading around like 41, which tells us that we could still see a little bit lower price action. Now, I don't think that we are going to completely wipe out this low and target this $2 and like 30 to $2 and like 60 cent level. It's definitely possible, but I'm not expecting that. But when it comes to a lot of these altcoins, most of them are trailing around the lower tier level on RSI, which is saying that, most of these charts are sold off heavily. Most of this market has been selling off since going all the way back to July. XRP is a perfect example of this, which is why, a lot of people are getting shaken out. Capitulation is hitting, and again, with price action, we don't always need negative price action to capitulate investors. Time capitulation is also a big thing. So, overall, the market has been selling off since, XRP's official local top here. We've been selling off for about 72 days. And during this time, the market has been pretty frustrating to be a part of, because again, on top of, just this time frame capitulation, we've also been seeing the price action capitulation. But the big question here is, are we in that typical 4-year cycle? A lot of people have been asking about this 4-year cycle and if things have changed completely. Listen, there's definitely a lot of things that have changed. The 4-year cycle, in my opinion, is still in play. I'm going to play a video from Raoul Pal because he did mention something that's very interesting. But his thought process here is that We're no longer in a 4-year cycle. The key thing to look at when it comes to crypto's 4-year cycle is, what is this based on? Well, if we go over here to the annual changes in global liquidity, we could see that 2025, we started to see an increased amount of liquidity, just like in 2020. Now, going into 2021, that's when we witnessed Altseason. That's when we witnessed the biggest wave of the cycle. So everyone thinks, all right, well, 2026, we're going to see, something very similar to 2021, right? I don't believe so. Because again, we've been witnessing this market moving to the upside since roughly 2023. So we have been pumping for almost 2 years. Now, obviously, that 2-year period wasn't just us going absolutely crazy. We still need to break all-time highs, and we still need to, go into price discovery on a lot of charts. Now, Bitcoin is like the main one that has seen this, but regardless of that, we're still following the liquidity cycle. And let me just zoom in so that you guys can see this a little bit better. Now, this is charting out the future liquidity cycle. If we're looking at this logically, we should see a top in liquidity towards the beginning of 2026, Q1 of 2026. This has aligned with my thought process on the fact that we most likely have a top towards the end of the year into the beginning of 2026. Very similar to 2017, okay? Because again, in 2017, we pumped into the end of the year, and 2018, January, February was basically the top for altcoins. XRP topped around January of 2018. And by the way, yes, we did have capitulation in September of 2017. So this would align perfectly with us following that 4-year cycle of 2017 and 2018. But the main thing here is a lot of people are saying 5-year cycle. I'm not going to lie. Yes, a lot has changed in crypto. We're going to get to that here in a second, but I want to play the video clip because here we have Raoul Pal says Bitcoin cycle has shifted to 5 years with peak in 2026. Raoul Pal stated that the traditional 4-year Bitcoin cycle has now extended into a 5-year cycle. He predicted that Bitcoin will likely peak in 2026, probably in the second quarter, marking a shift in how market participants may view long-term Bitcoin trends. Listen closely to this, and then I will tell you guys my opinion on this.
Why is Bitcoin sort of not wildly off to the races yet? And it's this chart. Bitcoin is basically, this is a detrended Bitcoin, and it's basically the ISM, which is the business cycle. Remember, we've always said it's the business cycle stupid. It is always the business cycle stupid. And all of these people who claim it's the 4-year cycle based around this and that, they don't understand the fundamental of what the business cycle is, why there's a 4-year cycle in everything. And we've explained it. We'll go through it in great detail tomorrow in our Everything Code presentation. But basically, it's following the ISM. And rates have been following the same pattern. You see, rates should have come lower. They need to come lower because we need to roll the debt. We've talked about this. That's part of the Everything Code, fundamental part. And ISM, because rates are so high, has meant that Main Street has been screwed while Wall Street's made money from debasement. Earnings versus scarce assets. This is the issue that they need to solve, and they need to get rates lower. They get rates lower. Why? Why do we have an elongated business cycle that looks like virtually no other real other time? It's because, and I only just found this out redoing the work on the Everything Code recently, is that in 2021-22, they actually extended the maturity of the debt from 4 years to 5 years. So that extension of the maturity of debt has pushed out the business cycle a year. The 4-year cycle this time around is a 5-year cycle. We don't know what the next one will be until we see where they all end up getting refinanced, whether it comes back to 4 because they managed to get some stuff at the long end, or whether they shorten it because everything's in the short end. We don't know yet, but this one is a 5-year cycle. And this is what it looks like. The 5.4-year sine curve, 5.4 years is the exact average weighted maturity of the debt. And it tells us the ISM should peak by 2026. We think liquidity probably peaks before that, as the rate of change of ISM changes and the rate of change of liquidity changes. Our best guess remains well into 2026, probably Q2.
So, yeah, I mean, listen, when we think about this, I think that we start to look at when has the bull run really started? Because again, it really begins with Bitcoin, then Ethereum, then altcoins. 4-year cycles. Let's think about when crypto bottomed in the previous cycle. All right, so we top around the beginning of 2018, January of 2018, 2019, 2020, then we have 2021. So 2021, towards the end of 2021, is the top officially. And yes, by the way, into the end of 2017, that also counts as, a stage of the bull run. So if we're looking at this logically, 2023, 2024, the end of 2025, we should start to see that big shift to the upside with an eventual top in the beginning of 2026. Just like if we're looking at this 5.4-year sin curve, yeah, that would also align with the first quarter being the top for crypto. It would also align with the liquidity cycle also topping right around that same exact time period. Again, time frame, wise on the charts, which we've gone over in terms of patterns, it would align with that quarter one top. Now, the market has changed. There has been a lot of things shifting around. And this is like the biggest argument about around this market on how, we're not going to experience a bear market anymore. The market's just going to continue up and up and up and up. But that's just not how things work. When we think about this market, yes, we're starting to see crypto bills, stablecoins going crazy, ETPs, ETFs. Wall Street is now going all in. Institutional players are jumping in as well because, again, institutional adoption has been absolutely insane. We've been seeing, regulations around the world like MiCA, for an example. Even the US is starting to really kind of lock in. The UK also, Asia. So things are definitely shifting in a very significant way. So if we're thinking about this logically, is the 4-year cycle dead? I think that when it comes to the 4-year cycle, we're kind of calculating this a little bit incorrectly because, again, this is the first cycle around crypto where we have had such a crazy environment like this. And then also with Bitcoin, with inflation, everyone thought that Bitcoin broke its new all-time high back in, 2024, but we were calculating that compared to inflation, and we really didn't break that all-time high until a little bit later. So I feel like almost everyone's time frame has been a little bit off. The main thing that we're focused on here, though, is still liquidity. The liquidity cycle is telling us that this market will not top until about roughly, quarter one of 2026. This is very similar to 2017, 2018. I mean, even if we look at 2017, 2018 on this chart, yeah, we have that steep drop in liquidity going into the end of the year. Very similar to what we would be seeing in quarter one around 2026. So again, I always base this off of liquidity because, again, without liquidity, these markets simply do not move to the upside. So we need that liquidity. We need that easy money. And this is also at the same exact time that the Fed is starting to cut rates. So we are going to see that next big steep push to the upside around global liquidity. I think that the US is really going to start to, expand the supply of money. And during that time, markets will continue to expand. And then all of a sudden, we will start to see the constriction as well. This will be our bear market. Yes, I still believe that we see a bear market. This will most likely be the last significant, typical cycle around crypto that we follow. Because next up, I do think that we start to see utility really shine. So overall, to really kind of summarize this up fully, I don't think now is the time to get shaken out. I don't think that this is the time to make mistakes. Now, the best thing to do is simply just be patient. And I know that we hate hearing that. Oh, I don't want to be patient. I want this market to go crazy. I want to see, my portfolio going up in value. We all do. But we need to be patient during this time because we know that the market is not topped at this point. Why? Because liquidity is going to continue to expand. We already know that the Fed is going to start to print more money, especially with upcoming rate cuts. And on top of that, adoption is increasing. We're starting to see more money entering the space. And we also just got a huge update from the SEC to get that framework in place around altcoin ETFs, which is also going to, bring in a tsunami of money from those ETFs that get approved, because I do believe that by the end of this year, we're going to see a lot of altcoin ETFs getting approved. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.